Shalom and good morning, Israel. Blessed Sabbath to everyone. My name is Brother Zerubbabel, and I'm with the Children of Israel, coming again on this beautiful Sabbath day to bring another milk lesson to the body of Israel. This lesson is called "The Tongue is a Fire." The tongue is a fire. Um, just over all the years now of being in the truth, watching different Israelite groups teaching online, um, watching Israelite groups as they're posting videos of themselves teaching out in the streets. Also, myself being a part of a camp at one point, started to see and hear a lot of language that is inappropriate, very inappropriate. And over these years, as we can see, it's getting worse as elders that are in the truth, leaders, even some of their followers. As time is going on, people are getting more and more relaxed, getting more and more. I can't think of the word right now. Just the language is just getting out of hand. Um, while we were in the world, we had to deal with all of this derogatory, disrespectful language that is throughout society. We, as the Israelites, we should be doing everything we can to turn our people from wanting to listen to and use this filthy language. The Most High God cares how people view the nation of Israel. He cares how the other nation view us. The problem is we've gotten to the point to where we've been in America so long, we've become so worldly that we have that negative attitude that a lot of our people have that are living in the world, that I don't care what anybody thinks about me. I don't care. I'm going to do me. That pride is rampant among Israel, and we've got to let it go. Let's go to Deuteronomy real quick. We're going to go to Deuteronomy chapter 4 and verse 5, just to prove to you and show you that the Most High cares how the other nations view us. The book of Deuteronomy chapter 4 verse 5, it says, "Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land whither you go to possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people." This nation is a wise and understanding people. So the Most High cares how the other nations look at Israel. The other nations should be looking at Israel and saying, this is a wise and understanding people. We should listen to them. We should follow their example. But that's not what's happening. Actually, the complete opposite is happening. That these other nations, these religious institutions, they're seeing and hearing our people out on the streets teaching, or they're watching the videos that we're posting online, whether it be YouTube or some other platform. And they're hearing the garbage that is coming out of the mouths of some of our leaders, some of our seasoned leaders in Israel. And they're shaking their heads and going, man, why am I going to listen to these people? Listen to the foolishness that's coming out of their mouths. They sound like a bunch of uneducated idiots. They sound like a bunch of fools. Why am I going to listen to them? When they can easily speak evil of you because you don't know how to control, you don't know how to rule your tongue. You don't know how to control your emotions. You don't know how to control your actions. This little member that we have, this tongue, we've got to get control over it. In order to show the world that we've got wisdom and understanding, we have got to control the things that come out of our mouth. There are some in Israel that are trying to convince the followers, the people that are waking up, they're trying to convince you that it's okay by the Most High that we can speak these words, that we can speak this language. There's nothing wrong with cursing. It's not a sin to curse. Are you sure about that? Are you absolutely 100% sure that you're not leading people astray by teaching this doctrine that it's okay for us to use foul language? One of the excuses you hear all the time is, oh, you got the white man on you. That's because that's the white man came up with them words. So if the white man came up with these words, and you know that they're used in certain contexts, in certain situations, to belittle somebody, to defame somebody, to speak ill toward someone or about someone, these words need to be stricken from our language. It's funny that on one hand, you sit there and blame it on the white man that he's the one that came up with this, but then you turn around and use the words. It's crazy. Sometimes we as the Israelites don't take the time to stop and think before we speak. Not having control of your tongue, not having control of the things that come out of your mouth. Let's go to Proverbs 1:1. The book of Proverbs, chapter 1 and verse 1. It says, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice and judgment and equity, to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and will increase learning. A man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. To understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instruction. Because that's what happens a lot of times when you have someone try and come out and teach Israel against using this opprobrious language or this harsh language or this profane language. You have men of Israel that come out and speak against it. All you're showing is that you despise wisdom and instruction. All throughout our lives, we've been we've been watching movies and listening to the foul language in movies. We've been listening to it in the music. We've been hearing it at school. It's been all around us. It's rampant in the world. Young children nowadays using all kinds of foul language. Is that a good look? You have adults constantly cursing in front of their kids, using foul language. And they find nothing wrong. You've got school teachers now using it in front of their students. Sports teams, sports coaches are using it and yelling and cursing at their athletes, their young athletes. That's because our people don't know wisdom and instruction. They cannot perceive the words of understanding. Why? Number one, because it's not being taught to them. So caught up in the world that the scriptures and the Most High in Christ are the last things on their mind. We in the truth claim that our meditations are on the word of the Lord, that our meditations are on the scriptures night and day and night, 24/7. But how could that be true when you turn around and you speak, dress like, and act like the very people of the world that we're trying to turn our people from? We're trying to turn our people away from living worldly and to live godly. How can you say you're doing that when you're sitting there speaking and talking just like the people of the world? You're not receiving instruction. You're not teaching wisdom. There is no justice. There is no judgment. There is no equity. There is no subtlety. We're showing ourselves to be just as simple as the people that we're trying to turn our people away from. Again, Proverbs 1:1, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment and equity, to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. A lot of you won't do it. A lot of you will not increase your learning. You think you've got it all down. You've learned it all. You know it all. Nobody can tell you anything. A man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsels. You will try and go to somebody that's speaking wisdom, that's bringing wisdom out of the scriptures. You will go to them and ask questions. You will try and find out if what they're saying is actually true or not. And once it's brought out of the scriptures, you should be repenting and saying, you know what? Yeah, they're right. I better stop using. I need to change. I need to control my tongue, because lack of control of the tongue shows lack of control of my emotions, which also shows lack of control of my actions. To understand a proverb in the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings. If you're sitting around saying that and teaching people that the Bible doesn't teach about using curse words and profanity, you obviously haven't read the entire scriptures. You haven't read it all, and you certainly don't have 100% understanding that some people claim that they've got. You've got no understanding of the Proverbs. You haven't fully interpreted the scriptures and what the Most High is trying to teach us. You obviously don't understand the words of the wise, because the scriptures clearly tell us that the tongue is a fire. You need to get control of that fire. Otherwise, it will spread. Otherwise, it will burn many people. And some of you are doing it. You're burning a lot. You think you're doing it in righteousness. No, you're not. How could you, on one hand, go out on the streets and burn people with the scriptures, and then turn around and burn your own brother online, calling him a nigga, calling him a this or that, a band, calling our women B's and HOEs, It doesn't make sense to me. Let's go to Proverbs chapter 4 and verse 1. Proverbs chapter 4, verse 1. It says, "Hear ye, children, the instruction of a father, and attend to no understanding. For I give you good doctrine, forsake ye not my law. For I was my father's son, tender and only beloved in the sight of my mother. He taught me also, and said unto me, let thine heart retain my words. Keep my commandments and live. Get wisdom, get understanding, forget it not. Neither decline from the words of my mouth. Forsake her not, and she shall preserve thee. Love her, and she shall keep thee. Wisdom is the principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding." A lot of our so-called leaders in Israel are not following what the Most High is telling us. We're not listening to the instructions of our Father. We're not trying to attend to no understanding. Understanding is repentance, turning from evil. That's how you show that you've got understanding. And a lot of our men in Israel are not doing that. They're not turning from the evil that they were caught up in when they were in, when they were in the world. You may have stopped doing one or two things and say you're a repentant Israelite. You may have fringes and a border of blue on. You may have grown your beard, keeping high holy days, keeping the Sabbath. But yet you're still walking around with your pants sagging, still wearing baseball caps turned to the side and turned backwards, and still wearing your gang colors, still talking like one, acting like one. If it walks like a duck and talks like a duck, what is it? It's a duck. You're not fooling anybody. And then you want to get offended when somebody says that you are a gang member, that you act like a gangster. And then they take all of Israel as a whole and lump us all together, which they rightfully should do, because we are one people. We are one body. We are one church, one group, one community. No matter how much all of you try and separate from each other with all these different camps and different groups, you cannot do it. We're bound by blood. We're bound by nation, by nationality, bound by spirit. And with that, we should be trying to show the world that we are a wise and understanding people, not that we're the same old NIGGAs that we were in the streets or when we were in the world. Let's go to Job chapter 15 and verse 2. The book of Job chapter 15 verse 2, it says, "Should a wise man utter vain knowledge and fill his belly with the east wind? Should he reason with unprofitable talk, or with speeches wherewith he can do no good?" Because that's what some of you do. You fill your lessons up with a bunch of unprofitable talk. It's unprofitable to no one, not even yourself. With F this, F that, S this and S that, nigga this and nigga that. I hate them niggas. I can't stand them. I can't stand y'all niggas. I wish you die. I wish you was the one that died. Oh man, I wish them niggas would die. That's the foolishness that's coming out of the mouths of some of our so-called leaders in Israel. Don't know how to rule your tongue. Don't know how to control your tongue. Cannot rule your spirit. You're uttering vain knowledge. You're reasoning with unprofitable talk. You're coming out with speeches wherewith he can do no good. You can't do any good with the speeches that you're giving. You may think that you are, because you give these long, Yahweh Ba'ashem, all praises to the Most High and His Son, the Most High Yahweh and His Son, Yahweh Shai, and you got the words, you got the verbiage, you got the names down and all of this. and then turn around and curse up a storm and think that you're being righteous. Think that you're teaching the doctrines of the Most High. Verse 4, yea, thou castest off fear and restrainest prayer before God, for thy mouth uttereth thine iniquity. Let me read that again. For thy mouth uttereth thine iniquity. You don't even realize that your mouth is telling on you. Our people are so full of pride that when they start speaking, they don't know how to stop. They don't know how to control themselves, and don't realize that the things that are coming out of their mouths is just telling on them. It's telling on you, letting the people know who you truly are and how you truly are. For thy mouth uttereth thine iniquity, and thou choosest the tongue of the crafty. You choose the tongue of the crafty. You're choosing to use this language. You're choosing to use these words. And you're being crafty in the way that you're trying to go about to justify it by telling people that those words are in the book. Those words are in the Bible. Thine own mouth condemneth thee, and not I. Yea, thine own lips testify against thee. So it's not me condemning you. It's not me testifying against you. Your own mouth, your own lips do that. You do it to yourself. And then you wonder why these Christians, these Christian apologetics, these people of the world will walk by you teaching on the streets and just shake their head and keep on walking and be like, man, these dudes are crazy. Death to the white man. Death to America. I hate the white man. Show me in the scriptures where Christ and the apostles stood on the corners spouting out about how much they hate the white man. Spouting out about, just spewing off out of their mouths about how much they hate the white man. Show me in the scriptures one instance. And don't go to Romans 9 and 13, because that was not Paul standing out there on the street corners teaching. That was a letter that he wrote. And even in that letter, he showed wisdom and understanding. He was wise. He did it subtly. It was very subtle in reminding the people that the Most High hates Esau. That's the problem with our people. We always want to be seen. We always want to put on a show. And the problem is our people love it that way. If you notice, the people, the groups that our people flock to are the groups that are teaching mainly lies. Their lips, their mouths speak a lot of lies, a lot of deceit, a lot of backbiting against their own members and other camps and camp leaders. There's nothing but strife going on, nothing but debate. If you think I'm lying, go and look at the views of the people that are getting the views, that are getting the thousands of views on YouTube, that have been teaching on YouTube for years. They're the ones that are leading Israel astray. They're the ones that are constantly using all kinds of foul language and opprobrious words. They're the ones that are full of debate, always debating somebody about something. There's always some kind of strife going on between them and either people within their congregation or other groups outside of their congregation. They're constantly online debating, searching for vainglory. and forgetting what Christ said to us. They completely forget. Let's go to Matthew 12 and 36. The book of Matthew, chapter 12, verse 36. It reads, "But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment. For by thy words thou shalt be justified, and by thy words thou shalt be condemned." We were told, we were warned that it's by our words we're going to be justified, by our words we're going to be condemned. You've got to learn how to control the things that come out of your mouth. Somewhere down the line, and I know it's coming from elders, certain elders and that are leaders of certain different camps, they love to use this language. They haven't learned to control themselves in the 25, 30 plus years that they've been teaching. They learned it from their elders, and now they're teaching it to their younglings that are under them. The young men and young women that are under them, they're teaching, because I hear even our women using this language, women in the truth, who sound no different than the Jezebels that you might run into in the world or out in the streets. The language is just as bad. But Christ says, "But I say unto you that every idle word that men shall speak, they shall give account thereof in the day of judgment." You forget that in the day of judgment, you're going to have to give an account to the angels. You're going to have to give an account to Christ and the Most High for the things that you say. So when you're sitting there telling that brother that, "I wish it was you that was dead instead of so-and-so," or wishing death, "I wish that fool would die. I would death on this camp. I wish death to them niggas." You're going to have to pay for that. You're going to have to give an account for that. When you're calling our women B's and HOEs, you're going to have to give an account for that. When you're calling your fellow brothers bands, you're going to have to give an account for that. Let's go to Proverbs 13:3. So Israel, be careful what you say. Learn to think before you speak. It's very important. Don't take this as a light thing, because that's what a lot of our people do. They think that this is just a light thing. It's no big deal, because that's how it's being portrayed by the leaders in Israel. Oh, it's no big, man, it's no big deal. Proverbs 13:3. He that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life, but he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction. Need I say more? It's the Bible speaking. These are the words of the Most High, not mine. He that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life. We see a lot of people dying on the streets out there. There are a lot of incidents out here on the streets that could be avoided. Black on black crime, so-called black on black crime anyway. We know we're not black. So-called black on Hispanic crime, Hispanic on Native American crime, and Native American crime on Native American crime, Hispanic crime on Hispanic crime, whatever way you want to put it. A lot of it could be avoided if you learn to keep your mouth. Somebody cuts you off on the freeway, your first instinct is to want to pull up and tell them off, curse them out, give them the finger. But if you learn to rule your tongue, if you learn to keep your mouth, you will keep your life, because you might pull up next to that person, go off on them, start cursing them out, yelling and screaming at them. And the next thing you know, they're pulling out a gun and shooting at your car. You're walking through Walmart. Somebody bumps into your basket or bumps into you with their basket. Your first instinct is to turn around and start cursing them out and yelling and screaming at them. going off on them. And then you want to fight. You're threatening them. I'll do this to you. I'll do that to you. I'll kick you. And then next thing you know, they pull out a knife or something in the middle of Walmart and start stabbing you, start, cutting you up, losing your life. There are thousands of videos online of this stuff happening every day in society. People not knowing how to keep their mouths. And next thing you know, they find themselves into some kind of trouble and they end up losing their life. You could be anywhere nowadays, anywhere. Actually, in fact, there's a new video online right now, a news story about a brawl that happened at Disney World again. Why? Because someone didn't know how to keep their mouth. They didn't know how to keep their mouths shut. They didn't know how to rule their tongue. They didn't know how to rule their spirit. They didn't know how to control their actions. They didn't think first before speaking. They didn't find out the whole matter before they went and started this whole situation. Proverbs 13:3 again, he that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life, but he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction. Our people relish in that. I go from 1 to 100 like that. There is no middle ground with me. You set me. Our people love to brag about stuff like that. I'll go off on somebody in a minute. They think they're being cool. You're being a fool. You're not being cool. You're being a fool. Plain and simple. Your brother online may say something that offends you. And instead of calling the brother on the phone and handling it the way you're supposed to, you want to go online and start spewing off at the mouth. We see it all the time. We see it all the time in Israel. He that keepeth his mouth keepeth his life. You get pulled over by the cops. Your first instinct, what you pulling me over for, man? I ain't even done nothing. F you, F that. Threatening the cops. Take that badge off. You didn't have that badge. I'll do this, and this. Next thing you know, you're getting pulled out of the car. Now you're resisting. Now you're down on the ground. Now you got a knee in your neck. Or you decide to run. You decide to curse the cop out and run. Now you're getting shot in the back. We know the cops are not supposed to do this stuff. But why provoke him? Because you can't control your tongue. You don't know how to rule your spirit. So you end up losing your life. Why? Because you couldn't keep your mouth. In other words, you couldn't keep your mouth shut. You couldn't control it. Your mouth is open wide open, speaking all kinds of wicked and evil things, which leads to your destruction. All this language is leading to the destruction of our people. Our people are being destroyed by the music, foul language in the music, foul language in the TV shows, foul language even in the cartoons the kids are watching nowadays. Mouth is wide open. Lips are open wide. Let's go to James chapter 3, verse 1. The book of James chapter 3 and verse 1. It reads, "My brethren, be not many masters, knowing that we shall receive the greater condemnation. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. Let me read that again. For in many things we offend all. If any man offend not in word, the same is a perfect man, and able also to bridle the whole body. If you're able to bridle your tongue, you're able to bridle your whole body. You can control your actions. You can control your mouth. You can control your actions. If you cannot offend anybody with your words, you're a perfect man. That's what we should be doing. We should be perfect. Not doing it to the best of our ability. That's not written in the scriptures. He says, do or do not. Do or do not. Verse 3, behold, we put bits in the horses' mouths that they may obey us, and we turn about their whole body. So you got that thing that goes in the mouth of the horse, and when you pull a certain direction, you could turn the horse around, control the horse. Verse 4, behold also the ships, which though they be so great and are driven of fierce winds, yet are they turned about with a very small helm, whithersoever the governor listeth. So when you're out there on the ocean and you've got a sailboat, it's got that big old huge sail on there that's being pushed by the wind, but the thing that's controlling the direction is small. It's being turned about by a very small little item. I don't know anything about sailboats, so I don't even know what the thing is on the bottom of the boat that turns it. I can't even tell you the name of it. Don't even ask me. I'm being honest. I don't even know what they call it. But that little thing is what's turning the boat in whatever direction you want the boat to go. Listen close. Verse 5. Even so, the tongue is a little member, and boasteth great things. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. Behold, how great a matter a little fire kindleth. That little tongue, that little thing can start a whole big old 1,000-acre brush fire if you don't know how to control it. Verse 6, he says, and the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So for you to sit there and try and say that the things that come out of your mouths, all that foul language is not iniquity, you better think again and go read these scriptures again. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. That little member you have within the enclosing of your mouth is a world of iniquity. You may do a good job of speaking sweet nothings into the ear of your congregants and the people online and having them believe that using this bad language, this opprobrious language, is not a sin. You better think again. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. So is the tongue among our members, that it defileth the whole body, and setteth on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire of hell. Look at what this little member can do. It can defile your whole body. The tongue can defile your entire body. It can set on fire the course of nature. Like I just said a second ago, that little bitty tongue can set a whole big old 1,000-acre brush fire. 7, verse 7. For every kind of beast and of birds and of serpents of the things in the sea is tamed, and have been tamed of mankind. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceeded blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. He's telling us we're not. On one hand, you're online talking about all praises to the Most High Yahweh and His Son Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, blessing and giving double honors, to the Father and His Son, and then you turn around and call your fellow brother a band, a you know what nigga. That's not supposed to be happening. On one hand, you're praising the Most High, and then you turn around and call our women B's and HOEs or heifers. It's crazy. Let me read that again. Verse 8. But the tongue can no man tame. It is an unruly evil, full of deadly poison. Therewith bless we God, even the Father, and therewith curse we men, which are made after the similitude of God. Out of the same mouth proceeded blessing and cursing. My brethren, these things ought not so to be. We are not supposed to be blessing and cursing with the same tongue. We are not on one hand at the beginning of your lesson giving a whole big old dissertation, blessing the Most High and His Son, the Christ, and then turn around and be using all kind of foul language and cursing and all this stuff. That is not supposed to be happening. Verse 11, doeth a fountain send forth at the same place sweet water and bitter? Can the fig tree, my brethren, bear olive berries, either a vine figs? So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh. So can no fountain both yield salt water and fresh, meaning fresh water. The same fountain can't bring out fresh water and salt water at the same time. But yet, with this little member we've got, this tongue, we can bless, give all kind of honor, respect, delight in our elders, and then turn around and be speaking all kinds of evil, all kind of wickedness coming out of the mouth. A lot of these leaders that we have in Israel, a lot of these men are double-minded and double-tongued. A lot of them. Verse 13, who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. But when a brother comes out and says, hey, you know what? We shouldn't be using this language. All of a sudden, man, that brother's soft. Y'all just some soft brothers. I'm tired of these soft brothers. These soft Negroes. I guess I'm just a soft nigga. I guess I'm just soft. I'm a softie. What can I say? Who is a wise man and endued with knowledge among you? Who online is endued with knowledge? Who's a wise man or woman online right now that may be hearing or listening or in the future may watch this broadcast? Who's got wisdom and knowledge? And if you do, let him show out of a good conversation his works with meekness of wisdom. Verse 14, but if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. Because a lot of you are lying against the truth when you sit there telling your congregants that it's not a sin to use foul language. You are lying and you know it, and you got to stop. But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, because you see a lot of envy. You see a lot of strife going on in Israel. Too much of it. But see, that's what attracts the people. When people go online, they want to click on, the stuff that's going on, that, all the strife, all the battles going on. Very little edification. They want to watch the debates. Oh, so-and-so is going after this camp. Oh, let me watch that. I catch myself doing that too. A video will pop up with one group going after, and I'm like, oh man, what happened? Let me see what's going. You got to catch yourself. Oh man, hold on. Got to catch yourself. Got to be aware. You got to have self-awareness. Sometimes you got to, man, I'm not going to watch that. Let me watch something with edification, man. But if ye have bitter envying and strife in your hearts, glory not and lie not against the truth. This wisdom descended not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work. There are some people that are online teaching, and their whole modus operandi is that they're going to go after certain groups and certain people, using people's government names online and all kinds of stuff, because they want the preeminence. They want to go online and try and clown this certain leader, this certain group, just so they can lift themselves up. There are a lot of groups teaching online that if you watch what they teach, that's all that's going on in their lessons, is that they're talking, constant debating, constant gossip about this camp, this person, that person. For where envying and strife is, the reason why they're doing it a lot of times, because they're envious of certain leaders, envious of certain camps. There's a lot of envy that goes on among Israel, in the world and outside of the world, inside of the world of Israel. There's too much of it. Too much envying, too much strife. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work. And then you wonder why people are so confused. Confused about what moon we're supposed to be following. We've already shown you. Go watch our videos about the calendar of the Most High. Watch all 4 videos. About over 20 hours of lessons that we did, showing we're not supposed to be following the moon at all. We were never supposed to be following the moon. There are people starting to bring out books saying, you see, what moon did Christ follow? And in the very book that they're pulling out, they're only proving the point that we're making in the lessons that we did. That this has been the battle from day one. Some of our people following the sun as we're supposed to be, and some of our people wanting to follow the moon, which we learned in captivity, in many of our different captivities that we were in. Different captivities that we were in, where we learned to follow the moon and these moon gods from some of these other nations. Just like some of our people don't even realize that the word or the name for the month Aviv, we said, see, that's the Hebrew word. Don't even realize that that comes from the Canaanite language. We learned that from the Canaanites. It is a Canaanite word. Just like we learned Nisan from being in the Babylonian captivity. When we went into the land, we were supposed to kick all these groups out, and we didn't do it. We were supposed to destroy all these people, and we didn't do it. In our disobedience, we kept some of these people in the land and allowed them to stay. And of course, like Israel always does, we were influenced by them. So go and research it for yourself. Some of those names of months that you read about in the scriptures, like Aviv, and some of the other ones that we think are Hebrew names, they are not. They were from Canaanite names. And then when we came out of Babylon, we adopted Babylon names. We never had names for the months. We had numbers. They were numbered. Month 1, month 2, month 3, and so on. But there's strife and confusion in every evil work. Confused about whether or not we should have our heads covered or don't have our heads covered. It's in plain English. We are not supposed to have our heads covered when praying or prophesying. The women are supposed to have their heads covered. Having your fringes on. Some people are teaching that you only need to wear your fringes when you go to camp. Women wearing pants is war apparel. It's not talking about pants, it's talking about war apparel. The foolishness of some of our leaders in Israel when it's in plain English. Plain English. If we spent more time on keeping the commandments rather than spending the majority of our time to figure out ways to get around the commandments, we just might turn our people around and get them out of sin. But it seems like some of our leaders in Israel spend more time trying to figure out ways to get around the commandments rather than actually keeping them. And I'm just being honest. That's why there's so much confusion. Because leaders in Israel don't know how to control their tongue. They don't know how to control their mouths. They don't know how to rule their spirits. They profess and proclaim that they love God, but their hearts are far from him. This wisdom descended not from above, but is earthly, sensual, devilish. For where envying and strife is, there is confusion in every evil work. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure. First pure. What is pure? Let's go to Psalms 19 and 8. What is pure? The book of Psalms, chapter 19 and verse 8. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. The commandments are pure. So when we go back to the book of James, chapter 3, and verse 17, but the wisdom that is from above is first pure. First pure. First, the keeping of his commandments. Then peaceable, gentle. That sounds like being soft to me. Being gentle, being peaceable, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality, and without hypocrisy. That sounds like being soft to me. I don't know what Bible some of our brothers are reading, but this whole macho machismo thing that is going around Israel, there's some soft brothers, man. Y'all some soft niggas. Needs to stop. Because the Bible that I'm reading is telling us that we're supposed to be soft. We're supposed to be gentle and peaceable. But the exact opposite is being taught in Israel. We got to be like real men. We got to be hard. That's that old street thug mentality coming out of you. That's that same street thug mentality that's being brought into the Israelite community. We're not supposed to be walking around still acting like, walking like, talking like street thugs. It's not supposed to be happening. I'm going to read it again. So you know, it's not my words. I'm not making this up. But the wisdom that is from above is first pure, then peaceable, gentle, and easy to be entreated, full of mercy and good fruits, without partiality, because you see a lot of partiality in Israel, a lot of respect of persons, a lot of people holding a lot of these men in high esteem to the point of idolization, and without hypocrisy. There's a lot of hypocrisy going on in Israel. A lot of hypocrisy. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. And the fruit of righteousness is sown in peace of them that make peace. Let's go back to Psalms 19 and 8 again. The statutes of the Lord are right, rejoicing the heart. The commandment of the Lord is pure, enlightening the eyes. Got to be keeping the commandments. Got to get rid of this language. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 15:33. The book of 1 Corinthians chapter 15:33. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Be not deceived. A lot of our people are being deceived by the leaders in their camps into believing it's okay to use this messed up language. There's nothing wrong with it. It's written in the Bible. In the Bible, it's being used in a complete different context. You know what context you're using it in. You're using it in the context of the world, Esau's world, because the white man came up with them words. But then you turn around and use the white man's words every day, all day, nonstop. F this, F that. B niggas that. BASS niggas this and that. B's and HOEs. All day, every day. That's what's coming out of your mouth. Be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. We've been being filled with evil communications our entire life. Our enemies want us acting like this. They're relishing in us acting like this. So don't you think it's time for a change? Our enemies are putting it in our music. They allowed us back in the 80s. Like, oh, they want to call each other niggas. They want to use, oh man, hey, this is a good way to corrupt them. They gave us the tools to corrupt ourselves, and we just went, as Israel does, like a moth to the flame. Head first without thinking, jumping into that lake without knowing how deep it is. Not knowing that right underneath the surface of that water is a bunch of jagged rocks that you're going to destroy yourself on. You're going to die. Because that's what Israel has always done. It's just something within our people that we at first think later. We are a very reactive people rather than a proactive people. And we've got to change. Again, be not deceived. Evil communications corrupt good manners. Is the music that our people listening to, is that making our people peaceable? Is that making our people gentle? Is it making our people easy to be entreated? No, it's not. All that profanity, all that kill 'em up, shoot 'em up, going to the club, being promiscuous in the music is corrupting our people. Look at the state of our people in 2022. Go back to 1982 and look at our people in 2022. Look at the difference. Look at the movies. Not only are the movies getting worse, but the TV shows are getting worse. They're showing stuff on TV now that you couldn't even watch back in 1982. In the movies, they couldn't even put it in the movies. The language, the sex, the violence. Go back and watch a movie from the 1980s. If they had any kind of profanity, that movie was R-rated. It wasn't until maybe a little bit later they came up with the NC-17. PG, parental guidance. PG-13. They started breaking it up a little more. Back in 1982, it would be almost impossible for a child to find a porn magazine or to watch porn unless a mother or father was dumb enough to leave the porn magazine sitting around for their child to find, or was dumb enough to leave the porn movie sitting out somewhere in a closet or somewhere they thought they hid it to where the child can find it. But now these children got iPhones where all they got to do is just type it in and it pops up on their phone like that, and they can watch porn. Evil communications corrupt good manners. It was unheard of in 1982 for a child to be able to watch porn. Not that it never happened. There were rare occasions where it may have happened, where like I said, family or some mother, father, somebody left it out and the child found it by accident. Today in 2022, these kids are actively seeking this stuff out online. Then, in fact, there's a movie that came out not too long ago called is it the Good Boys, I think it was, where you had this group of 4 boys, and in the movie they show one of the boys, they were actively looking up porn on the internet. You think that they're not trying to corrupt the kids by putting this stuff in the movies in 2022? With the language that the kids are using in these movies? But yet parents are allowing their kids to watch this stuff, and the kids are being influenced by it. In other words, evil communications corrupting good manners. These kids nowadays don't even have good manners. I remember as a child going to the doctor's office and sitting there with my mom, my sister, and people leaning over to my mom and saying, "Oh my gosh, your kids are so well behaved. I can't believe how well behaved they are. They're just sitting so quiet. You're doing such a good job with them." I remember those days. Now you go to a doctor's office and people's kids are running all over the doctor's office, jumping on the furniture, running around out of control, and the parents are just oblivious to it. They're just ignoring it, as long as they don't have to be bothered with their kids. That's evil communications corrupting good manners. These kids nowadays don't know how to have good manners. I remember as a child walking through the store. Back then we had Kmart, we had Sears. Walking through Kmart or Sears or back then the grocery store, what was it? Boys Market in the hood. Anybody that lived in the jungle, remember Boys Market. If you lived anywhere around LA, anywhere in the Crenshaw area at all, everybody remembers Boys Market. They had the song, Boys Market. Going to the grocery store, going to Boys Market as a kid, and showing that you had manners. You weren't walking, through the store, running through the store out of control and having everybody looking at your parents like, like, what are you teaching these kids? It was unheard of. Now you go to Walmart and you got the kids running through the stores playing, parents nowhere around. The parents are dropping the kids off in the toy section and leaving them alone because they don't want to be bothered with them so that they could get their shopping done. Where are the kids getting this from? Evil communications that are corrupting good manners. You could be walking through the grocery store and hear little kids in there and all, every other word coming out of their mouths is profanity. Where are they getting it from? Evil communications, corrupting their good manners. They don't know how to have good manners nowadays because it's not being taught to them. Wonder why these kids are fighting every day at school. Why? Because of evil communications. That's all they're being shown in cartoons is violence. Video games, violence. TV shows, violence. Movies, violence. Music, violence. Inside the home with the parents, violence. And then wonder why these kids are so corrupt that they don't know how to deal with each other at school. They don't know how to be peaceful. They don't know how to be pure. They don't know how to be gentle. Why? Because their parents don't know how to be gentle and peaceable. Because the parents are corrupted. How are the parents corrupted? Because the parents are that same generation that grew up in the 90s. See, my generation that grew up in the early 90s, that graduated high school around 1990, 91, maybe 92, 93. Now you're pushing it. We grew up. Now in the 90s, Death Row Records took over. Bad Boy Records took over. Gangster rap. Evil communications. Shoot 'em up, kill 'em up. Gang banging. Took over the music industry. And now those kids that grew up in the 90s are now around in early 30s, maybe late 20s. And they're having kids. And their kids are out of control. Why? Because evil communications corrupt good manners. All that evil communications over these past 20, 25, 30 years have utterly corrupted our people. What are we going to do about it? Continue the same cycle? Because that's what some of you so-called Israelite leaders are doing. You're continuing the cycle. Let's go to Sirach 23:15. The book of Sirach, chapter 23 and verse 15. The man that is accustomed to opprobrious words will never be reformed all the days of his life. Let me read it again. The man that is accustomed to opprobrious words will never be reformed all the days of his life. What does the word opprobrious mean? I'm going to look it up. I'm going to share my screen in a second. Because even with this word opprobrious, you see people trying to, it doesn't mean bad language. Let me go back. Let me share my screen. Share screen. All right. You should be able to see a second. All right. The word opprobrious, of language expressing scorn or criticism. of language, expressing scorn or criticism. Synonyms: abusive, vituperative, derogatory, disparaging, denigratory, pejorative, deprecatory, insulting, offensive, defamatory, slanderous, libelous, scurrilous, scandalous, vitriolic, venomous, scornful, contemptuous, derisive, contumelious, calumnious, calumniatory, and aspersive. So you can't tell me that when you're calling somebody a B, that you're not intending to use that in an offensive way. When you call our women an HOE, and sometimes some of you are calling even the men in Israel B's and HOEs, that you're not using it in an offensive way. When you're calling our brothers bands, you cannot tell me that you're not using that in an offensive way because you're trying to offend them. So stop the foolishness. Stop with the lies. Oh, there's nothing wrong with using this language. There's nothing wrong with it. You know that you're using it in a way to offend somebody. Opprobrious words. Sirach 23:15 again. Sirach 23:15. The man that is accustomed to opprobrious words will never be reformed all the days of his life. And you wonder why, when you see some of these brothers, you got to ask yourself, why does it seem like some of these brothers haven't repented? When you look at their actions, you listen to the things coming out of their mouths, these brothers haven't really repented, but yet they're the ones leading Israel. What is going on here? They have not been reformed. And the script, it's not me saying it, it's the scripture saying it. The man that is accustomed to opprobrious words, meaning scandalous, scornful, insulting, offensive words, will never be reformed all the days of his life. That's why you see some of these brothers still hanging out in the club, still going to the strip club, still partying, still drinking and getting drunk. Some of them are still smoking weed. Some of them are still out there in the streets fighting, haven't learned how to control themselves. What you see a lot of men that have learned how to memorize scriptures. They've learned how to memorize scriptures, but they haven't been taught how to apply them. And some of them may have been taught how to apply them and just ignore it and don't care to apply them. They don't care to apply the law, the commandments to their life. So again, it's not me saying it. It's the scriptures. Opprobrious words, derogatory, disparaging, insulting, offensive language, slanderous. Let's go to Sirach 19:29. Sirach 19:29. A man may be known by his look, and one that hath understanding by his countenance, when thou meetest him. A man's attire and excessive laughter and gait show what he is. So the scriptures are telling you that you can tell how somebody is just by looking at them. Just think. Think about some of the brothers that are in Israel, leaders in Israel, still sagging their pants, still walking around acting like little children, very immature, All they do is sit around giggling and laughing all the time. Everything is funny. These are some of your leaders. Still sporting their gang colors. Some of them even have their gang colors in the colors of their what do you call them? Their logos for their camp logos. Some of them are hiding in plain sight their gang affiliation colors in their logos. Some of our brothers are still walking around acting like thugs, talking like thugs. No matter how much you sit around and brag about you're pulling people up out of gang membership and pulling people out of selling drugs and doing this and doing that, you're just pulling them out of one gang and bringing them into another. Some people are getting offended because they're being called a gang. Well, you're still acting like one. Your actions are still showing you to still have that gang mentality about you. Again, we just read earlier in the scriptures that it's your words that condemn you. It's not me. Your words, your actions, the way you act, your laughter, the excessive laughter. A man's attire and excessive laughter and gait, meaning the way you walk. Some of you still walk around with that strut, still got that gangster lean on you. Some are having their high holy days, and you still see them in there doing the crip walk in their high holy days, dancing like they're dancing in a club. A man's attire and excessive laughter and gait show what he is. You're showing what you are. So don't get offended. And if you're offended by what I'm saying, hit me up. Leave a comment. Hit me up. And we can sit down like men and talk about it. And I haven't said anybody's names, because I'm talking to Israel as a whole. All of Israel needs to get this corrupt communication out of their tongue, out of their mouths, because this tongue is a fire, and that fire is spreading among Israel with all this filthy language. And you're showing what kind of person you are when you're using it. And then we wonder why these groups are able to go out there and say these things about us. Man, those Israelites, man, those dudes ain't serious about keeping these commandments. They're hypocrites. They're crazy. Have you heard? That's always the first thing that comes out of them. Have you heard the way they speak out there on the streets? Have you ever heard them out there on the streets teaching? You ever heard them? That's always the first thing. Have you ever heard them? Have you ever heard them? Why is that always usually the first thing that comes out of someone's mouth when they speak about the Israelites' teaching? Because they hear the corrupt communication. They hear the foul language. They're hearing it. And that's the impression they walk away with. You may be saying, man, I don't care what these other nations feel. I'm here for my people. But guess what? God cares. We read that earlier, Deuteronomy 4 and 5 and 6. God cares how they look at us. So take it up with the Most High. Change, repent. How hard is it, seriously, to just stop using the language? How hard is it? We ask people all the time, how hard is it to put some fringes on your clothes? How hard is it to grow out your beard? How hard is it, women, to just stop wearing pants and wear a dress? It's not that hard to do. It's not that hard to stop using the foul language. It's a choice. You either choose to use it or you choose not to. You're in control of it. Let's go to Mark chapter 14. Because some of the people that like using this language when they're asked about it, I've watched and witnessed some of these leaders and some of the people that use it try and say that there's nowhere in the scriptures that says that cursing and swearing is the kind of cursing and swearing that the white man used. The white man came up with that. That's not in the Bible. The word to curse, it doesn't mean using bad language. Are you sure about that, brothers? Are you sure? Because I'm about to show you that you're wrong. Let's go to Mark chapter 14 and verse 66. The book of Mark chapter 14 and verse 66, and listen closely. You guys have heard me say before, a lot of our people don't listen to Christ. They say they listen to Christ. They're reading Christ's words, but they're not listening. They're not hearing. Mark 14:66. And as Peter was beneath in the palace, there cometh one of the maids of the high priest. And when she saw Peter warming himself, she looked upon him and said, And thou also wast with Jesus of Nazareth. But he denied, saying, I know not, neither understand I what thou sayest. And he went out into the porch, and the cock crew. And the maid saw him again and began to say to them that stood by, This is one of them. And he denied it again. And a little after, they that stood by said again to Peter, Surely thou art one of them, for thou art a Galilean, and thy speech agreeth thereto, because the way that you talk shows where you're from. Certain accents, certain jargon that you may use shows where you come from. Oh, he's from the south side. Oh, he's from the north side. Oh, they from over there. From you know how this works with our people. But let's see what he did. What did Peter do? Verse 71. But he began to curse and to swear, saying, I know not this man of whom you speak. But he began to curse and to swear, saying, I know not this man of whom ye speak. And the second time the cock crew, and Peter called to mind the word that Jesus said unto him, Before the cock crow twice, thou shalt deny me thrice. And when he thought thereon, he wept. So when it says he began to curse and to swear, what is it talking about? Exactly what it's saying, that he, just like any of our people do, man, F y'all niggas, y'all don't know what y'all talking, I don't know that nigga. Talking like Israel does. He began to curse and swear up and down. In other words, using all kinds of foul language, swearing up and down he didn't know Christ. If you don't believe me, let's go look up the words. Give me a second. I'm going to look up the word curse, because they have you believing that the word curse only has one meaning in the Bible: to put a curse on somebody. But is that the only way it's used in the scriptures? No, it's not, because we're reading it right here in the book of Mark. Let me share my screen. All right, you should be able to see it. Curse. Actually, you know what? Let me go down, get the Merriam-Webster. Where is it at? Right here. Let's go to Merriam-Webster. Curse. Definition 1. Used as a noun. A prayer or invocation for harm or injury to come upon one. Okay. A lot of our people do that. I hope you, man, I wish you was dead. I pray them niggas would die. We see that in the Israelite community all the time. People putting curses, wishing harm on somebody. A profane or obscene oath or word. A profane or obscene oath or word. Something that is cursed or accursed. Evil is in response to imprecation or retribution. You know how that is. Something happens, you fall down, like, man, I must be cursed or something because I keep tripping over stuff. We've all been there. A cause of great harm or misfortune. Menstruation. Curse, used as a verb. To use profanely insolent language against. To use profanely insolent language against. To call upon divine or supernatural power to send injury upon. To execrate in fervent and often profane terms. To bring great evil upon. So Peter was using profanely insolent language in Mark 14:71. He was using profane or obscene oath or words in Mark 14:71. He began to curse and swear. Let's go to swear meaning. Let's get that. Swear. What does Merriam-Webster say about swearing? To utter or take solemnly an oath. To assert as true or promise under oath. Put your hand on the Bible and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. To assert or promise emphatically or earnestly. To put to an oath, administer an oath. To bind by an oath. To invoke the name of a sacred being in an oath. To bring into a specified state by swearing. Swear being used as an intransitive verb. To take an oath. Oh, look at here. To use profane or obscene language. They all mean the same thing. Curse, swear, swearing. It's the same thing. Profane or obscene language. Profane or obscene language. So we've got to cut it out. We got to stop with the lies in Israel. They're trying to make it seem like that it's not a big deal to use this language. Yeah, some of them brothers are just soft. So let's deal with the cursing. So we see that Peter started going off. They were calling him out. You was with him. Like our people always do, started cursing, going off to, I don't know this dude. What are you talking about? You don't know what you're talking about. I don't know him. You don't know me. You know how our people are. But let's go to the book of Romans chapter 3. The book of Romans chapter 3. And we're going to start at verse 9. Romans chapter 3, verse 9. It says, what then? Are we better than they? We know this talking about, is the southern kingdom better than the northern kingdom? But right now I'm using it to say, what, am I better than you? No, I'm not. Am I any better than any of my brothers because I don't use that language? No, I'm not. He says, no, in no wise, for we have before proved both Jews and Gentiles that they are all under sin. The northern kingdom and the southern kingdom, northern kingdom, we're all under sin. All of us, me included, we're all under sin. As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none that understandeth, there is none that seeketh after God. They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Their throat is an open sepulchre. With their tongues they have used deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips. An asp is a type of like a snake, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. He's talking about all of Israel, all of us, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their ways, and the way of peace have they not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. There is no fear of God before their eyes. Our people, and yes, rightfully so, because of everything we've gone through as a people, all the different captivities, everything that we've endured. Yes, we've got a lot of hurt and anger built up inside. But when you come into this truth, we're supposed to lay that aside. We're supposed to be a new creature. We're supposed to be gentle. We're supposed to be soft. Until it's time to not be soft. There's the movie Roadhouse with Patrick Swayze from back in the 80s, where he played the part of a bouncer that was hired by this dude to come up and clean up his club. His club was out of control. And the bar was so out of control that when he came in, one of the guys asked him, so how are we supposed to know when it's time to, we can't put our hands on anybody. How are we supposed to know? When is the time to act? And he said, be nice. Somebody gets in your face, be nice. Somebody calls your mother whatever, be nice. Until it's time to not be nice. It's the same thing in the Bible. We're supposed to be gentle. We're supposed to be peaceable until it's time to not be gentle and be peaceable. But until that time, we got to learn how to rule ourselves. We got to be able to rule our tongue. We've got to control our tongue. We've got to control our actions. Be nice until it's time not to. Not just standing out there on the streets, and we're seeing this with people. Some of our brothers are just standing out on the street so they could get views, cursing out the white man. That's your whole motive in being out there, is just to curse out Esau. I hate Esau. I hate these white devils. Can't stand them. And your whole teachings are about the destruction of Esau. Death to America. Death to the white man. Speaking in Hebrew. Kwam Yashrala, however you're saying it. I don't know how to speak Hebrew. I'm not even going to pretend like that I do. Kwam Yashrala, you know what I mean? It's crazy. Watch this. Let's go to Second Esdras real quick. Second Esdras. See, some of our brothers, they know the scriptures. They got them memorized, but applying them And sometimes they may forget about some scriptures. But let's go to 2nd Ezra 9 and 13. It says, and therefore be thou not curious how the ungodly shall be punished and when. Let me read that again. And therefore be thou not curious how the ungodly shall be punished and when, but inquire how the righteous shall be saved, whose the world is and for whom the world is created. See, we're spending so much time thinking about and preaching about and meditating about how the white man's going to get destroyed. The white man's going to get his payback. You know what I mean? Worrying so much about how the wicked are going to get punished that you forget about how the righteous are going to get saved. You forget about it. And there are some groups that when they go out, their whole thing is we got to preach the commandments. We got to preach the commandments. We got to preach the commandments. Got to teach them that they're Israel. We got to teach that they're Israel. Teach the commandments. Teach them how to repent. Teach them repentance. Teach them they're Israel. Teach the commandments. Teach them repentance. But there are some of our brothers out there that they just stand out there and disregard 2nd Ezra 9 and 13. Everything is about how the white man's going to get punished. We know the white man's going to get punished. We know the white man is the wicked, the so-called white man anyway. We know that they are the wicked that the Bible speaks of. We know his wicked ways. It's crazy how sometimes you could watch some of our brothers go out on the streets to teach, and you're like, where are people at? Why does it seem like every time they go out to teach, they always go somewhere where there's nothing but Edomites? There's no Judah. There's no Judah around there. There's no northern kingdom around there. There's nothing but Edom. You're at the beach with nothing but Edomites walking around and cursing out Esau. You're standing in front of a shopping mall cursing out Esau. Standing out on a corner where there's nothing but Edomites walking by. And then all you're doing is standing out there talking about death to Esau. You're going into captivity, which we know the Bible says. We've got better things to do. We've got to wake Israel up. We've got to wake up our people. Some of you think you're waking our people up, but they're coming into your camp and still asleep. You're lullabying them back to sleep. Yeah, you're teaching them that they're the Israelites, teaching them how to grow their beard, teaching them to keep high holy days, teaching them to keep new moons, put fringes on. But that's about the extent of it. What about the inner man? What about that inner person? Commandment 1. Going back to Romans 3 and 9. What then? Are we better than they? No, in no wise, for we have before proved both Jews and Gentiles that they are all under sin. As it is written, there is none righteous, no, not one. There is none that understandeth. There is none that seeketh after God. They are all gone out of the way. They are together become unprofitable. There is none that doeth good, no, not one. Their throat is an open sepulchre. With their tongues they have used deceit. The poison of asps is under their lips, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. Destruction and misery are in their ways, and the way of peace have they not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. No fear of God before the eyes of a lot of these leaders. Because if you feared God, you would put away those images of Black Christ. You would put away those images of the black Most High that you guys have. Some of you guys have pictures of the Father sitting on the throne with his white woolly hair, breaking the commandments so you could keep your own traditions, because you know that's what brings them in. Just like you hear, what's it? I can't remember the elder's name. Flat out telling us that the very reason that they started using the 12 tribes chart, because that was the hook. That's what brings them in. That's the reason why you guys will not get rid of the black image of Christ, any images of Christ, because you know that's the hook. You've got a hook, line, and sinker, because they can look at that image and go, oh, Christ is a black man. We don't need an image. It's written in the scriptures. Believe it as it is written, not as you see it as some man painted, as some man created on his computer, some graphic designer that created it, leading men to destruction because you want to do what you want to do. No fear of God in your eyes, no fear of the Most High. Hold on, I'm going to go to Wisdom of Solomon. We did a whole lesson about this. Let me go to Wisdom of Solomon real quick, chapter 14. Because again, there are those out there that want to proclaim that there's nothing wrong with having that image. I'm going to go to Wisdom of Solomon 14, verse 8. But that which is made with hands is cursed, as well it as he that made it. He, because he made it, and it, because being corruptible, it was called God. For the ungodly and his ungodliness are both alike hateful unto God. For that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it. For that which is made shall be punished together with him that made it. Making those images, you are going to get punished. He may not do it right away, but it's going to happen. Warning you. Are you going to listen to the warning from your brothers, or are you going to continue to ignore it? That the tongue is a fire, because the first thing that's going to come out of their mouths is they don't know what they're talking about. Strife. They're going to strive against the truth. The truth I just read to you. You creating those images is going to get you destroyed. Go to chapter 15. Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 15, verse 4. For neither did the mischievous invention of men deceive us, nor an image spotted with diverse colors, the painter's fruitless labor, the sight whereof enticeth fools to lust after it. And so they desire the form of a dead image that hath no breath. Both they that make them, they that desire them, and they that worship them are lovers of evil things, and are worthy to have such things to trust upon. So we're showing you, we've gone through this so many times already, but yet we still see the images out there. We don't need the images. But what's going to happen? These brothers that don't know how to control their tongues, don't know how to control their emotions, are going to come up with lies and deceit to deceive you into believing that it's okay for them to have the image. And they're going to do it subtly. Oh, them brothers don't know what they're talking about. What are you listening to them brothers online for? We keep telling you guys stop listening to those idiots online. What do they know? I'm just showing you what I know. I just read it to you. I just read it to you. You're going to get destroyed if you keep those images. God hates you. Not my words. We just read it to you. So he just told us, telling us about Israel, Romans 9 and 14, whose mouth is full of cursing and bitterness. There's a lot of bitterness, a lot of cursing, a lot of swearing, a lot of opprobrious words, a lot of disrespectful, unkind words that come out of the mouths of a lot of the men of Israel. But they're going to tell you cursing in the Bible is not the same thing as cursing as the white man has taught you. Well, we just showed you that yes, it is. It's the same. Just like the white man shows us that it's used in different contexts. Sometimes it could be used to curse someone. Sometimes it could be used to say something against a deity or a god. Sometimes it could be foul language. There are a lot of different definitions. Let's go to Exodus 22 and 20. I'm going to give you another example of how the word curse is used in the scriptures. Exodus 22 and 28. It says, "Thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people." Thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. So we already got the definition of curse. What does it mean to revile? Let's get that this time. Let me share my screen again. What does it mean to revile? Revile. What does it mean to revile? To subject to verbal abuse. To subject to verbal abuse. To use abusive language. To use abusive language. So we know that Exodus 22 and 28 is referring to us not to use foul language based on the context of the sentence. And that the word revile is also being used. So that's letting us know that here in the scriptures, no, we're not supposed to curse the rulers of our people. We're not supposed to revile our gods. Use verbal abuse, abusive language towards our God or against the rulers of our people. And that kind of language, verbal abuse and abusive language, is opprobrious words, which is disrespectful words, which is all the other synonyms that we've come up with, like scolding, berate, rail, revile, vituperate. Let me see what else. Scold, upbraid, berate, rail, revile. Implies a scurrilous, abusive attack prompted by anger or hatred. Our people, we do this all the time in Israel. Vituperate suggests a violent reviling. So for us to try and sit there and act like there is nowhere in the scriptures that says that it's a sin for us to use this language, we are fooling ourselves. You are fooling nobody but the congregants in your or the members in your group. Go back and read it. Exodus 22 and 28. Thou shalt not revile the gods nor curse the ruler of thy people. It's not only talking about putting a hex on them. No, that's talking about putting a curse on them. No, it's not. Stop playing word games. Stop playing foolish. Let's go to Job 31 and 29. Show you another example of that kind of cursing being used in the scriptures. Job 31 and 29 through 30. It reads, "If I rejoiced at the destruction of him that hated me, or lifted up myself when evil found him, neither have I suffered my mouth to sin by wishing a curse to his soul." So this is an example of someone trying to put a curse on someone. Little bit different than cursing with obscene language. You're wishing a curse on someone. Wishing a curse. Let me read it again. If I rejoiced at the destruction of him that hated me, or lifted up myself when evil found him, neither have I suffered my mouth to sin by wishing a curse to his soul. But does that mean that doesn't mean that you can sin by cursing at someone? Because it's all the same. It's the same. Using opprobrious words, reviling someone, putting a curse on them. Saying F that nigga. Is that not a form of putting a curse on somebody? Think about it. And I'm being realistic. Really think about it. In the context of someone saying that about someone. You are in sin. No matter how you try to play it out, no matter how you try and play it down. So what we're doing right now is I'm giving you example in Exodus 22 and 28 of the word curse being used as foul language, corrupt communication. In Job 31 and 29 and 30, giving you another example of the word cursing being used as putting a curse on somebody, like a hex. Like, if you say something else about me, I hope God make you fall off a cliff. And then the person falls off a cliff. That's putting a curse on somebody. Now let's go to Acts 23 and 12. Acts 23 and 12. Gonna show you another way the word curse is being used now in this way in the form of an oath. Acts 23 and 12. It says, and when it was day, certain of the Jews banded together and bound themselves under a curse, saying that they would neither eat nor drink till they had killed Paul. And they were more than 40 which had made this conspiracy. And they came to the chief priests and elders and said, we have bound ourselves under a great curse, that we will eat nothing until we have slain Paul. You see that going on today in Israel. Somebody may have something against a brother in a camp, and they're like, you know what, man? We ain't gonna do nothing. We just go chill. We ain't gonna do nothing until we see that fool. And then, then we're gonna lay into him. Can't stand him. You know what, man? I never liked him to begin with. Yeah, I never liked him either. Man, I knew it was something wrong with that dude. Man, I knew he was, no good. I knew that nigga was wicked. Now all of a sudden everybody's on board. They're against him, binding themselves under a curse. Well, we're not going to have Passover dinner, until after he get here. And then after we go in on him because we don't want to defile our Passover. You see stuff like this going on in Israel. And in the midst of that, in the course of that, what kind of language being used? So it is what it is. Just going to keep giving some examples of the word curse being used in the scripture, because there are people that are going to try and convince you that the word curse is only being used in the scriptures as putting a curse on someone. Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 7 and verse 21. Ecclesiastes 7 and 21. Also take no heed unto all words that are spoken. He said, all words that are spoken, lest thou hear thy servant curse thee. For oftentimes also thine own heart knoweth that thou thyself likewise hast cursed others. And this is true. It's not just talking about putting a curse on someone. It's talking about all the words that, that we've used as a people. The F word, the S word, the N word, the B word, the H word. Putting those, using those words in the context of a person to demean them or demean them. So what if you hear your servant curse you? The servant's back there working and he's like, man, F my boss. I can't stand him. I hope he dies. How can you get mad about that when you yourself have done the same thing about others? As it says in verse 22, for oftentimes also in thine own heart knoweth that thou thyself likewise hast cursed others. Is that only just talking about putting a hex on somebody? No, it's not. Let's go to Psalms 10 and 2. The book of Psalms, chapter 10 and verse 2. The wicked in his pride doeth persecute the poor. Let them be taken in the devices that they have imagined. For the wicked boasteth of his heart's desire, and blesseth the covetous, whom the Lord abhorreth. The wicked, through the pride of his countenance, will not seek after God. God is not in all his thoughts. His ways are always grievous. Thy judgments are far above out of his sight. As for all his enemies, he puffeth at them. He had said in his heart, I shall not be moved, for I shall never be in adversity. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. And you want to sit here and try and tell me that the words that come out of your mouth that are profane is not a sin? His mouth is full of cursing, not just putting a curse on someone. Your mouth is full of opprobrious language, full of all kinds of disrespectful and disparaging language, hurtful language, hatred. Let's stop playing games. His mouth is full of cursing and deceit and fraud. Under his tongue is mischief and vanity. There's a lot of deceit and fraud among Israel. People being deceptive in some of the doctrines that they're teaching. Blatantly being deceptive. Let's go to Psalms 59 and 12. The book of Psalms, chapter 59 and verse 12. For the sin of their mouth, let me read it again. For the sin of, because there are some people that say cursing's not a sin. We just show that cursing has more than one meaning. You could put a curse on someone, or you could be cursing and using bad language, foul language. Let's stop playing games. Psalms 59 and 12, for the sin of their mouth and the words of their lips, let them even be taken in their pride, and for cursing and lying which they speak. And for cursing and lying which they speak. Not making this up. It's in the scriptures. Let's go to Leviticus 24 and 10. The book of Leviticus, chapter 24 and verse 10. And the son of an Israelitish woman, whose father was an Egyptian, went out among the children of Israel. And this son of the Israelitish woman and a man of Israel strove together in the camp. And the Israelitish woman's son blasphemed the name of the Lord and cursed. Blasphemed the name of the Lord and cursed. He wasn't just blaspheming the name of the Lord. He was using opprobrious language. He was cursing. He was going off. And they brought him unto Moses, and his mother's name was Shilamith, the daughter of Debri of the tribe of Dan. And they put him in ward. In other words, they put him in jail that the mind of the Lord might be showed them. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, bring forth him that hath cursed without the camp, and let all that heard him lay their hands upon his head, and let all the congregation stone him. And thou shalt speak unto the children of Israel, saying, whosoever curseth his God shall bear his sin. Is that talking about just putting a curse on God? God, I hope you don't ever exist again. God, I hope you fall out the sky of heaven and break a leg. Is that what that's talking about? Putting a curse on God? Stop playing games. And he that blasphemeth the name of the Lord, he shall surely be put to death. And all the congregation shall certainly stone him, as well as the stranger, as he that is born in the land, when he blasphemeth the name of the Lord, shall be put to death. Stop playing games. Stop playing word games. You know this stuff is in the Bible. You know what it means. This is talking about that person that's sitting around cursing up a storm. Man, I can't stand the Most High. F that. F you. We've had people say it on the streets. F God. He ain't done nothing for me. F that Bible. So stop playing games. You know exactly what this is talking about. Let's go to the book of Sirach, chapter 23 and verse 7. The book of Sirach, chapter 23 and verse 7. Hear, O ye children, the discipline of the mouth. He that keepeth it shall never be taken in his lips. The sinner shall be left in his foolishness. Both the evil speaker and the proud shall fall thereby. Accustom not thy mouth to swearing. We already showed that swearing also means using foul language, bad language. Neither use thyself to the naming of the Holy One. For as a servant that is continually beaten shall not be without a blue mark, so he that sweareth and nameth God continually shall not be faultless. A man that useth much swearing shall be filled with iniquity, and the plague shall never depart from his house, if he shall offend. His sin shall be upon him. And if he acknowledge not his sin, which a lot of you don't want to acknowledge, that the foul, nasty, filthy, opprobrious language that you use towards your brothers and even the other nations is sin. You will never acknowledge that it's sin. And if he acknowledge not his sin, he maketh a double offense. And if he swear in vain, he shall not be innocent, but his house shall be full of calamities. There is a word that is clothed about with death. God grant that it be not found in the heritage of Jacob. Let me read that again. There is a word that is clothed about with death. There is a word that is clothed about with death. God grant that it be not found in the heritage of Jacob. But we want to sit here and pretend. There's some people that are going to click off. Like, oh man, this brother don't know what he's talking about. Ain't nothing wrong with cursing. Ain't nothing wrong with profanity. That's the key word: profanity, profane language, profanity. For all such things shall be far from the godly, and they shall not wallow in their sins. Use not thy mouth to interpret swearing, for therein is the word of sin. Right here in the scriptures, but you have people telling their congregations that using this language is not a sin. Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 5 and verse 2. It says, be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth. Therefore, let thy words be few. But yet, a lot of these camp leaders, teachers in Israel like to talk a lot. And like I said in the beginning, a lot of times, a lot of them talk so much and they talk so fast and have no control over their tongue that they utter things that they ought not, and then don't even realize what they've said. They have no idea they said some of the things they said. Just like I gave the example, I believe it was last week, watching a video of one of the camps that were out in front of a church. The brother walking around with the camera is walking around and showing everything that's going on, and comes upon a kid standing on a stoop, meaning on his porch out in front of his home. Walks up to the kid, had to been 11, 12 years old, no older than 12. Goes up, holds a conversation with the kid, and the kid's like, why are you guys doing this? Why are you guys out here? What's going on? Like, oh, why are we doing this? Because we tired of these the church is not teaching our. And I'm like, did he really just say that to this kid? You see, you're letting your pride get so pumped up that you out here doing the Lord's work that you forgot you were talking to a child, and let your tongue slip. And it wasn't a slip, because that's how you speak all the time. That's how you talk all the time. And then get offended when the pastor of that church is able to go before his congregation and say, you hear how they were talking? You hear the words coming out of their mouth? It's because you're not showing people how the men of God are supposed to be acting. Ecclesiastes 5:2, once again, be not rash with thy mouth, and let not thine heart be hasty to utter anything before God. That's what your problem was. You were too hasty. You let your pride get the best of you, and you're standing out there feeling good that you guys had all these men, and forgot you were talking to this child. For God is in heaven, and thou upon earth. Therefore, let thy words be few. We talk too much, Israel. Talk way too much. Let's go to Psalms 50 and 19. The book of Psalms, chapter 50 and verse 19 says, thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue frameth deceit. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thine own mother's son. See, I can sit here and know that I'm not slandering anybody. I'm not speaking against my brother, because what I'm speaking exactly what I heard. His own words condemn him. His own words, his own actions in public showed what he was doing. So if I can correct the brother, Lord's will, he hears it and corrects and apologize, and even apologize to the kid and the mom and say, you know what, I'm sorry. You know, I slipped my tongue. You know, I forgot I was talking to a young kid, you know, and it came out, whatever the case is. But you owe that child an apology. You owe the mother an apology. Thou givest thy mouth to evil, and thy tongue framest deceit. Thou sittest and speakest against thy brother. Thou slanderest thine own mother's son. Why did that happen? Because you have leaders in Israel that are teaching that it's okay to use this language. There's nothing wrong with it. And it's just openly accepted now, which it should not be. We've got to get it out of Israel. We've got to get it out of Israel. Let's go to Sirach 32 and 7. The book of Sirach, chapter 32 and verse 7. It reads, speak, young man, if there be need of thee, and yet scarcely when thou art twice asked. Let thy speech be short, comprehending much in few words. Be as one that knoweth, and yet holdeth his tongue. If thou be among great men, make not thyself equal with them. And when ancient men are in place, use not many words. Before the thunder goeth lightning, and before a shamefaced man shall go favor. Rise up betimes, and be not the last, but get thee home without delay. There take thy pastime, and do what thou wilt, but sin not by proud speech. But sin not by proud speech. Because that's what a lot of this is. A lot of it is proud speech. The majority of it is proud speech. Very proud, prideful. Let's go to 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. The book of 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. Finally, be ye all of one mind, having compassion one of another. Love as brethren. Be pitiful. Be courteous. That sounds like being soft to me again. Not rendering evil for evil or railing for railing, but contrariwise, blessing, knowing that ye are thereunto called, that ye should inherit a blessing. For he that will love life and see good days, let him refrain his tongue from evil, and his lips that they speak no guile. Let him eschew evil and do good. Let him seek peace and ensue it. For the eyes of the Lord are over the righteous, and his ears are open unto their prayers. But the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. For the face of the Lord is against them that do evil. Let's go to Ecclesiastes chapter 12 and 13 through 14. It reads, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So Israel, we've got to repent. We've got to remove all of this language out of our vocabularies. We've got to show the other nations that we are a wise and understanding people. We've got to show the world that we are God's people, that we are upstanding citizens, that we are, you see, you shouldn't have to go online and give a dissertation of your accolades, your list of world achievements. You shouldn't have to do that. Well, I've got this degree, I got that degree, I went to this school, I went to that college, I was in this sorority, I was in, I don't know, whatever these dumb Greek fraternities and sororities and stuff. But you see that happening in Israel. You got to go and give a whole breakdown outline of your certificates and college degrees and all this stuff. From the way you walk, the way you talk, the way you treat people, people would know that you're somebody that is of honor and high esteem and educated. They would know. You wouldn't have to tell them. They'd be able to see it, just like our forefathers, like Joseph. The Pharaoh saw something within him that was like, you know what? I'm going to make him second in command. Moses, he grew up as the Pharaoh's son, but even with him, there was something that was there that made this person, this other nation, take notice of him. Daniel, there was something about Daniel that made the king of Babylon take notice of him because of the way he carried himself, keeping the commandments, speaking righteously, doing that which is commanded of the Most High. And the king of Babylon was able to look at him and say, hey, you know what? There's something different about this kid. And that's what the Most High wants for all of us. But if they see us out in the streets acting like NIWGAs and spics and, you know, just acting ignorant, acting like gangsters, talking like gangsters, walking like gangsters, standing around like gangsters, there's really no need. If you're holding camp and you've got 5, 6, 7, 8 main people there to teach and some people to hold post, there's no reason for 30, 40, 50 people to just be standing around the camp not doing anything. Nobody's getting edified because people are going to, you know, you might get a couple of people stop and listen. But the majority of the people are going to walk right by because of intimidation. They're not wrong to say, man, they're intimidating. It is intimidating. If you're walking down the street and you see a bunch of brothers standing over there on your side of the street that you're approaching, it's intimidating. They're standing out there. They're like, man, nigga this, nigga that. Well, you know, you can hear them talking. They're laughing. And you know that they're up to no good. They may just ignore you or they might hit you up. But it's intimidating. You're going to cross the street and go the other directions. I know I would. That's what I would do. Rather than risk confrontation, I'm going to cross to the other side way before I get to them and just go about my business. But some people won't take heed. But that's what is happening with a lot of the people. They're walking by. They're walking by. And then you want to call those the 2/3. Those the 2/3. You 2/3. You don't know that. They could have very well been one of the Most High's chosen. And they kept walking by because you just offended them with your harsh words. If I'm walking by and I hear somebody on a microphone talking about death to who, it doesn't matter who it is. They don't know what an Edomite is. All they hear is, man, I hope all these Edomites die. They don't know what an Edomite is. All they hear you is that you're saying you wish death on somebody. They're going to keep walking by. Because I know I would do this and like, man, there's something wrong with that dude. What are you out here talking about death to wishing somebody die? What's wrong with you? I don't want to have no part of that. When I'm not stopping, you're like, brother, stop and talk to me. Stop and talk to your brothers. I keep walking too. Like, what am I going to stop and talk to you for? And you sitting there talking about death to somebody, wishing death on someone. What kind of man of God does that? All kind of foul language and cursing coming out of your mouth. Why am I going to stop and listen to that? I go pop a rap song into the CD player or whatever. I know we don't have CDs anymore, majority of people. But we've got to repent from this stuff, Israel. And as we just read, the conclusion of the whole matter is keeping God's commandments. And with that, I'm going to say shalom, Most High in Christ blessed. Enjoy the rest of the Sabbath.